I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're good.
You're really good.
Good.
Thanks for coming back on and joining us again.
No problem. Thanks for
We had
having me
great fun
back.
last time.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Did you get my book?
I did. I got like 3 copies of it.
That's right. Share them. That's what I always say.
Yes, I will. I will.
You're going to have to send us some of yours.
Yes. Yes. It just came out on Tuesday.
Woohoo! Selling with heart.
Oh, that looks very fancy.
Who's your publishers? I
What's
can't
that?
see. I said, who's your publishers? I can't see.
Tom Jacobs. Tom Jacobs.
You self-publish.
Did you self-publish? Yeah. Right. Okay. And what's it about?
It is about, it's a sales process for health and wellness practitioners who fear selling. So it's a practical guide. It's real digestible, like in one afternoon, because it's like 100 pages, but it's full of just everything that I've gone through as a fitness professional, as a nutritionist over the years. And as I struggled with sales at the very beginning, I came up with a process and got really good at it. And so over the last 20 years, I've been perfecting that process, helping other who I consider heart-centered salespeople in that process, and then put it together in a book so that more people can have access to it.
Amazing.
And how long did it take you to write it?
Good question. So I started in, I think, June of last year. So it was only about 9 months to write it.
Okay. It's pretty good.
And I did it in chunks. So around the August timeframe, I took 10 days and I went to a beach resort. And every morning before getting into the pool, I would sit by the pool and I would write. And I would write like 1 chapter a day for 10 days. And I just knocked out 10 chapters because no distractions. It just being in it was on a beach in the Philippines. And it was just absolutely beautiful. And just allowed that creativity just to flow.
Yeah.
And I had no other responsibilities other than to grab a beer at lunchtime and swim at the pool. So it was great.
That sounds really good.
Do you know what the thing about writing, isn't it? I mean, it's something I kind of feel that I avoid at the moment slightly. I've got good reason for that, but it's also, I think it's such a nice way of doing it, the way you've just described it. Like a friend of ours who's been on the podcast, Lewis, he goes down to he's got a shed at the bottom of his garden, and that's where he goes and works from. And lots of other people I've heard have got special places they go to special places. You've got a really funny frozen face at this moment in time. It's really funny. And I think it's really important to have that time where you're not interfered, because I can guarantee, like my laptop, there's an email come in, or there's this come in, or that comes in, and it distracts me, and I then don't. The phone goes, my husband walks in, the kids come down, or whatever. Instead of saying, actually, I'm writing today, and I'll be busy for the next 3 hours or 5 hours or whatever. I don't do that. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's so easy to get distracted these days. I mean, you almost have to go into a padded room with no internet connection, all cinder blocks around, so like no noise, no visuals at all, and just really concentrate. And I think I learned that from Brandon Bouchard, the personal development guy, and he that's how he wrote his book. He has a cabin up in the woods somewhere, which sounds interesting, and just nothing cabin in the woods, nothing good ever happens.
Almost sounds scary.
But it's you have to find what works for you. And for me, I needed to just go away, and just having that relaxation as well enabled just my mind to flow, and it got into that flow state, and just the words just came. It was good.
That's really good.
The other little thing that I did was used AI to actually come up with the order and the chapter order, and made suggestions on what to talk about based on a rough outline that I had.
Frozen again.
And
we got to, you used AI to do the chapters, and that's when it froze.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I used AI to create that chapter list and some suggestions on what to put into each chapter.
Really? Wow.
Okay.
And then because then I had at least a little bit of a starting point and a structure.
Framework.
Yeah.
And the framework. Yeah, exactly. And then it flowed, and it didn't quite work out the exact same way that, ChatGPT came up with, but like I got the start, and then I was able to reorder it based on just what actually came out. And it made that process speed up quite a bit. And then I had an editor come in and correct my grammar as much as she could, and while maintaining my voice at the same time. And she did a fantastic job, I think. Caught all the typos and everything. And there was only one typo in the very first edition of it, and it was after she had done all of her editing. And I decided, I got a friend of mine there in the UK actually to write the foreword, and I spelled forward wrong.
Oh no.
So, but it's corrected in the new versions, but this was the original version. So it's like literally forward instead of.
That's a special edition book you've got there then.
It's right. Yeah.
Very unique.
So yeah, very neat. But Pete Cohen.
So how do you promote then the sales of your book? Because obviously you want to sell your book. And what's the principle behind? I know what's the principle behind writing the book, but it's about what do you want to gain from having written this book?
Yeah, really good question. So I feel like this is a very big business card. And that's what I'm treating it as, is a business card or a lead magnet to now attract my ideal clients to learn more about my sales coaching and the other aspects that I do for them. And, throughout the book, there's little QR codes to download some more information, more goodies, so like that was a purpose. I'm not really interested in selling it and, becoming a best-selling author. I mean, if that happens, that's awesome. But the purpose of the book is really as a lead magnet, a really long lead magnet that took a very long time to make.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've never really wanted to sell my books. I have sold some books. People have bought them. But, I'm very similar to you. I just hand over. I'd rather give it away and people get value from it rather than it being, I'm not going to get rich on my books. I know that. I'm not J.K. Rowling, or Enid Blyton or whoever else. Beatrix Potter, even, ideally I'd love to be, but I'm not, and I'm never going to be. So, and that's okay too. But it's like, I love that concept of it being your business card. It's a really nice idea.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could write a book, Mike.
There's,
I don't know what I'd write about.
I'll be having a funnel set up that is a free book plus shipping funnel, which is kind of the traditional funnel of getting people into kind of into my world, or learning more about me. So they get the free book, and they just pay for shipping, and they get value out of the book. And then further down the line, when they need the help or they want additional coaching, then all my information is in there. So or to get speaking engagements as well, because that's another one of my passions is doing live speaking. And so that's the other opportunity. You go to an organizer of an event and you're a published author, all of a sudden that's credibility way and above anybody else that doesn't have a book.
Do you find that it's enhanced your own self-esteem having published? Did you get that?
You guys froze there no, I didn't. You guys froze there for a second. Right when
I said, do you feel that it's enhanced? Do you feel that it's enhanced your own self-esteem having published a book?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess a little bit. It's as people are reading it and I'm getting comments now back about it. That's definitely an ego boost that people are finding value in the words that I wrote. So I think it is kind of a little ego boost and and self-esteem boost as well. Not that I needed any help in that, because I really like myself.
Well, it's nice to hear that, because we do a lot of mental health stuff, and not our previous podcasts we've done today. You're talking to people who don't necessarily have that confidence. So it's about how have you got that confidence within yourself?
Well, early on, I didn't have that confidence. Obviously just working on myself, going to personal development seminars and just reading personal development books, and just understanding that, a lot of times if somebody doesn't like you, most of the time it's not about you necessarily. It's more about them and their preferences. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, whatever. I remember somebody said, like water off the back of a duck. Just let it flow. Yeah, it doesn't really bother me anymore. And definitely getting comments on. I've been on YouTube for 8 years now, and getting comments like, "Wow, you got really big ears." I'm like, great, I'm a really wonderful listener too. So it's interesting what people pick up.
I always find those kind of comments, they're always strange, aren't they? Because it's like, why are you stating the obvious? Yeah, I've got big ears. Yeah, wow. Exactly. Does that make a yeah? Oh, yeah.
Helps me fly, so.
Yeah, that's it.
What's your theory about that? Do you think people do it because, say, you might be different to them, so therefore they have to make a comment, or what's your?
Well, I think on them it's low self-esteem. So in order to boost themselves up, they have to put somebody else down, rather than, the way we should all be doing is boosting everybody up, because that keeps everybody up, instead of needing somebody to be below me, rather than we're all at the level that we need to be at, and let's help each other.
We have a massive mental health problem throughout the whole of the world, not just in the UK and not just in America, and not just, there's a lot of countries. And I've just come back from America actually myself, and you could see it there. It's really, really sad. And do you feel, what's your opinion about that as to why that's come about?
Well, I was just actually listening to another podcast the other day, and they had a psychologist on there that was talking about mental health issues and how it correlated with social media. That the number of girls self-harming themselves was like 157%, or like this astronomical number higher now than prior to social media. And part of that, like, I get FOMO, fear of missing out, when I'm scrolling through Instagram, and like, oh boy, I really want that jet. And you see what other people have, and you're like, oh, if only I had built out a fake jet in my house, then I could have Instagram photos of me in a private jet. That'd be awesome. Because you never know, like, what's really behind a lot of those photos and the videos. And what's unfortunate is a lot of the younger generation, they know no different. There's not a lot of critical thinking to say, well, is that real? Like, what's really behind that? And, instead of, it's just like scrolling through and, gosh, I really want that. Or the bullying that's so prevalent. Like when I was growing up, I would be bullied, but it was face to face. Like there wasn't this anonymous bullying where you don't know where it's coming from, like it is today. You have the keyboard warriors that are just, going out after people, and there's no repercussions for them because there's no face.
Well, they think there's no face. A lot of these people do it, and everyone knows who they are. They don't necessarily have the ability to stand up to them because they're not face to face. I think that's certainly something that I've seen and witnessed online. But just touching back on your thing about the private jet. I was watching a YouTube video a couple of months ago about a guy who bought a part of a fuselage of a private jet, put it in a field, and he now charges YouTubers to come and make videos and all that kind of stuff in there. So all these influencers, they're all sat in this fake jet that's really just in the middle of a field. It's only part of a jet, and they pay him, and he makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just renting out this private jet for people to come and pose in. And you think that's crazy.
What a great
but
business
isn't
model.
that is life though, isn't it? You see that much portion of a life.
Yeah.
Of somebody's life when somebody puts a statement on Instagram or whatever, that's just that one. It's that moment in time. It doesn't mean to say that they've got wealth or they've got happiness or they've got whatever. They just there's no evidence of that.
Yeah, it's
I always remember being. Sorry, Tom, go for it.
I was going to say it's the highlight reel, not the blooper reel that everybody shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember being in history class when I was about 9 or 10, and we were looking at all these photos from Victorian England, and we were told that these photos are a snapshot in time, and of course they are. We all know that, but the way the teacher described it made so much sense because it really is that snapshot. You've no idea what happened just before that photo, just after that photo, and I think that's so. It's come back round again now, where people take these photos, they film themselves doing these stunts or these pitches or whatever it is, but you don't really know what's going on in their lives, and it's quite interesting, and especially people that have not as much self-confidence, they're going to watch those videos, and I don't think it's going to make them feel better about themselves. It's probably going to make them feel worse. And that's the really sad thing, especially for the younger generation.
Yeah, because there's not that context that they have to think about, like life was what was life like before Instagram, or social media in general, and that context isn't there, nor is the social skills.
No,
I go to restaurants now, and you see couples that are eating together but on their own phones.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. And I gotta admit, I do it sometimes too. But but I have to go, wait, phone in the pocket, away, not even on the table, because that's you're out at a nice restaurant. There needs to be a conversation going on, not a conversation with 5 other people on Instagram or text message or what have you.
I completely agree. One of the things that I absolutely detest, and I mentioned this before on a previous podcast, is where you go into a restaurant and you have to scan the QR code to get the menu. And for me, that's such a massive thing, because you walk into the restaurant not on your phone, and then you're asked to get your phone out and scan a QR code. I think it's then very easy, once you've chosen what you're ordering and the rest of your group or your partner or your family are still looking at their phones, looking at the menu, you then get distracted and you go on and start scrolling on TikTok, or you start scrolling around on Facebook or Instagram or any other website, or your emails even. And then you've now got this massive distraction that it's very hard to put your phone back down. And I absolutely detest places that do that, because I think that, okay, we should all have better self-control, but I think that self-control is very hard to do when you're told to get your phone out, you're told to scan this QR code and be on your phone. And I quite a lot of places now which do that. I go in and say, I don't want to scan the QR code. Please provide me with a paper menu. And if they don't, there's been at least one occasion where I've said, okay, sorry, I'm not eating here. And I've gone somewhere else because I just dislike it so much.
Yeah.
I went into a restaurant. Sorry, go on.
I went into a restaurant recently, and they had a big sign that says, "We don't have Wi-Fi. Put your phone down and talk to each other." That was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I was reading a book at this moment in time. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. But one of the things they talked about was the fact that that's like somebody getting their book out and starting to read their book while they're having a conversation with you. Would you get your novel out while you've got your friend round for coffee, or you're out to dinner with somebody or whatever? And it's true. It's absolutely true. And I like you, I'm quite against it. I do put my phone down. I'm quite happy not looking at my phone. But like you, when I've been with Dave and we've been away on holiday and it's the only time we've got any Wi-Fi, we might just look at our phones for 5 minutes and then put it to one side. but I hate seeing it. I don't like it. We've got grandchildren, and I don't like it when they sit there on a phone and don't partake in the conversation, or they're on an iPad or whatever. And okay, there is a time and a place sometimes when you sat there for 2.5 hours and they're bored with the conversation, fair comment. But I do feel that actually what happened to a colouring book or playing cards together as a family and stuff like that. We don't have phones at our family dinner table. And very rarely, even like you come to our house quite a lot for dinner, the only person that ever carries a phone is William. And that's only because he works an American shift as well as a UK shift, and he has to do what he's got to work. So and everybody knows that, but he's the only one that ever really does that. Nobody else ever has a phone for that purpose. I just think it's quality time, and social media is one of the biggest pull for most people.
You were frozen here.
Yeah.
We keep freezing. No idea why.
It's being a bit odd today. So how are things with you, Tom? Are you still living out in Taiwan?
I am still in Taiwan, and renewing my visa this year, so I'm going to be here for however long I want. So
you decided you're going to stay a bit longer.
Yeah, absolutely. I sold my house in Houston 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So burnt the bridges. No,
wow.
I'm this now.
Does that mean you're going to stay in Taiwan forever, in the sense, on a daily basis, obviously, but
yeah, I think so. I still have like my two brothers and my mom still live in the States. But like my mom last year, she came out and visited for 2 weeks. We went to Cambodia for 4 days because it's just a 2-hour flight away. And we had just really great time and toured around Taiwan. And I think that was a lot better than I don't think she's ever spent more than like a week, even when I was living in Houston, and she was living in Ohio. And so like, what's an extra 12-hour flight? It's like, and I think, and then Taiwan itself, like, as I get older, I think about healthcare and making sure that there's adequate healthcare, and it is a really good system. Like I've been having some neck pain, so I went to a physical therapist, a doctor that's physical therapist. It cost me 200 NT, New Taiwan dollars, which is the equivalent of $6 or about 4.5 pounds.
Wow!
To see the doctor, and then every time that I go
incredible.
in, yeah, exactly. And every time I go in for my not personal training, but my physical therapy, and they do like decompression and then STEM, the electrical stimulation, and it's 50 NT, which is the equivalent of like a pound or $1.50 each time. In the States, that would just been my copay. Like, not what the insurance would, or before my deductible would ever kick in. So it's like that system is set up really, really well. It's super safe. A couple weeks ago, went to the gym. I had my AirPods and I left them in the locker in the morning. And then later in the afternoon, I was like, where are my AirPods? So I did the little find my AirPods, and it shows it at the gym. So I go over there in the afternoon, and I play the little beep for the attendant, and we see which locker it is, but somebody's been using that locker. And then all he does is puts a little tag on the locker, and the person turned them in, and I went in the next day and got my AirPods back. I was like, what country in the world could you leave your AirPods? And somebody went like, take them, right?
Yeah.
It was incredible. Super, super safe here.
Yeah. That's really nice to hear. Really nice to hear. Thought about going to Taiwan.
No, I haven't actually. What's the weather like?
Good question. So it rains. It was raining today for a little bit. So I'm in the north in Taipei, and so it ranges. Like in the wintertime, it gets down to about 12, 13 degrees Celsius, and then
that's summer in England.
I know. And I'm like, oh, it's cold here, and it's a wet cold. So like Of course, you guys know what that feels like. It just goes to your bones.
We do.
Yes. And then like the summertime, today it was like 23 degrees and raining, but the other day went up to 30. So it'll go up to 35, 36, really humid. Sun, not as much as in the south, but it's very pleasant. I like the heat and the humidity. So like I'm in heaven here.
So you're going to have to educate me, please.
Mm-hmm.
So educate me about Taiwan. What is it about Taiwan or if you were trying to sell me, like you do in your books, teach people to sell and promote and stuff like that, how would you sell me Taiwan?
It's putting you under pressure here.
Well, first of all, to ask you a question, are you looking to move out of England? Well, then there's nothing to sell. I wouldn't sell you something that you don't need.
Well, if I wanted to come on holiday and visit you.
Yeah, holiday visit, that's great. So Taiwan is an island. It's about 100 miles off the coast of mainland China. And there's a lot of history behind Taiwan and China. So I think it was in the 1912 area, in that era, there was a civil war in China, and part of the I guess the losers moved to Taiwan and established Taiwan as a democratic society and as a country. And then China did what China did. And now China believes that Taiwan is a province of China, mainland China. And the rest of the world believes that kind of as well, but kind of not really. Because even the U.S., so we don't have an embassy. The U.S. doesn't have an embassy in Taiwan. We have the American Institute of Taiwan in Taiwan. So it looks like an embassy, feels like an embassy, acts like an embassy, but is not an embassy because there's no director. It's actually an NGO, non-governmental organization. And that's sponsored by the State Department of the United States. Go figure how that works out.
Random.
And in most countries, England as well, doesn't recognize Taiwan as an independent country. But they also realize that China doesn't really have the authority to call it a province because China never did. It was the people moved to Taiwan to create a democracy. So in that sense, I mean, it's a very interesting history. Mandarin is the main language here. Taiwanese was a language. They're starting to bring that back in the schools again. It's an offshoot of Mandarin. But what's interesting is the written Mandarin here is traditional Mandarin. And so there's a lot more strokes to the character than the mainland China. They use simplified Mandarin. So it's the characters are just a little bit different, less number of strokes per character. So in that sense, there's quite a bit of difference with that as well, with the writing. But in terms of like what to do, there's huge diversity of geography. So you'll have mountains going up to, I think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 meters, where you can hike up to. It actually snows there in the wintertime. And we're in the Ring of Fire. So we just had a big earthquake 2 weeks ago. It was a 7.4 earthquake.
Wow.
And it was in the south. They had quite a bit of damage in the south, but up here in the north, we didn't have as much damage. And I live on the 10th floor. So it came about 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, what's going on here? Like everything was rocking. And I was like, oh, okay, earthquake. I was like, well, okay, what do I do? Open the door. Like that's what you're supposed to do apparently is open a door during an earthquake so that the door does open at some point in case it gets mangled or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do. So there's beaches, there's forest, there's mountains. So it's a really cool kind of area to be.
It's an interesting position that you say about because my husband and I have had conversations about it, about the fact that China is obviously trying to stamp their authority and say that they want it and stuff like that. And it's that being quite protective. It's a little bit like the Russians and Ukraine, really. It feels there's a parallel there between the dominance of other countries trying to take other countries, if you see what I'm saying, and the importance of the independence that they retain, and then that links for me back to bullying, and that bit about social media bullying comes into play with. It happens in big countries where they get bullied by other countries, and it's like, when does the bullying stop? When do we go as a world, actually stop this? It's not kind. Why are you doing this to kind of others,
Yeah. I mean, it's a big part of it, I think, is because of the semiconductor industry, because like 95% of the semiconductors are produced in Taiwan. China would love to have that type of technology because these are the advanced semiconductors.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and that's why I believe I'm sorry. Yeah, if there is a blockade.
What's a semiconductor?
Oh, it's what's in
the
everything.
chips, I think, right.
Chip in every phone, and there's simple ones, and then there's the more complex ones, and especially like the ones like NVIDIA uses for AI. Now, those are all really advanced semiconductors that are produced in Taiwan.
So that it's a bit like the gold, isn't it? Or the
oil
or whatever. Yeah. There's always something. It's like the Russians want the port so that they've got an opening in certain parts, so that it's all of that stuff, isn't it? It's awful, really. But as Brits were pretty rotten people in the past. We took over countries and stole all their goodies and did lots of things that we shouldn't have been doing. So it's just almost like history repeating itself, really, but in a different country.
America too, like we've had our issues in the past as well, and in even the last several years.
Absolutely. So going back to kind of your day-to-day work, I know that you enjoy talking and coaching people and so on. Have you got any big events that you've got planned and booked for this year?
I don't yet. I had a couple potential events in the States later this year in October timeframe, but nothing is firm on the calendar yet.
So if somebody wanted to book you to do a talk, how would you describe what you are selling? How would you sell yourself?
Great question. So if people are looking for a keynote speaker that speaks to like health and wellness practitioners, especially about growing their business through sales, sales not from the traditional bang them over the head until they buy or die kind of philosophy, but rather having a conversation to help uncover the problem and then solve that problem with their program or solution. And that is exactly what I teach. And inspire really the health and wellness practitioners to look at how can I now expand my practice with integrity and be able to do that and not feel icky about selling people a program that they may or may not need.
But do you not feel that that's a very American model, though? Because in America, that's what they have to do to be able to be successful in a lot of medical kind of practitioner senses, if that, I don't know how to describe that, but we don't do it like that over here, really. We do it a little bit, but we're not.
Well, in the States, most medical doctors are just take insurance, and so they don't need to do any marketing, they don't need to do any selling. Just there's enough sick people to go around. So in that traditional model, it works. Like you don't need to sell; they just put up a plaque and they got patients. However, for outside or cash pay practices, things that insurance won't pay for, like prevention, like keeping people healthy, insurance companies don't like that. And pharmaceutical companies don't like that either. But if you're preventing illness from happening in the first place, so if you're a nutritionist, if you're a functional medicine doctor, a naturopathic chiropractor, things like that, you have to do marketing and you have to sell because people are having to pay out of pocket. And now people don't understand, like, yeah, well, I'm kind of sick, but not really sick, but I don't want to get more sick. You mean I have to pay out of my own pocket? Like, insurance isn't going to pay that for me? Like, what's that all about? So it's that education, and then also uncovering a problem so that the person is like, yeah, I have this problem and I'm willing now to pay for it to not have that problem anymore.
Yeah. Because it is quite a, you're right. I mean, I work I've got drug and alcohol rehab. I work in that field where, people want to promote what you do. I mean, we are flat out. We couldn't take any more customers even if we wanted to. But that's today. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's like any business, any company, it's about getting your name out there so that people know who you are, so that when their window of opportunity to use you is there, they've remembered who you are in the first place, isn't it?
Yep, exactly. And that's the marketing. And then once they hear about you, and then they come in to see if your program is the right program, now they have to buy it. So there needs to be some type of sale in there to convince them that your rehab center is much better than the other rehab center that they might be looking at as well. Sure.
And I think, I don't know what you feel, Mike, but with the charity that we have, it's very much about, we market because, not that we want any more customers, but we market to let people know about what the support is out there for people, and it's free and it's there. But it's quite a difficult thing to do, isn't it? It's quite difficult to get people to respond to that.
Yeah, it certainly can. And I think it depends on what sort of content or thing you're trying to push. And it's quite interesting, really, because we post on our Instagrams and our Facebook page on a daily basis. And it's quite interesting, some of the things that get more interactions than others. And a lot of the time, it's the stuff that's quite almost, I'm trying to think of what the right word is here, but it's newsworthy almost. It's got to be that kind of
shock
kind of, that gets clickbait. Any kind of reaction. Yeah, clickbait. Yeah, that's another good word for it. And that's the stuff that sometimes works well. But yeah, it's quite interesting, really.
Yeah. There was, who was this? Dan Kennedy, who's like the godfather of direct response marketing. He said, if you're not pissing off at least one person a day with your marketing, then you're not marketing enough.
That's quite good. I like that.
And another way of looking at that too is like, you either are this way or that way, but down the middle is just boring. Nobody pays attention to down the middle. So have an opinion and share that opinion, because that's what people really will gravitate to. And that's actually a really good marketing tactic, because then you self-select the prospects that you get. So if I were just down the middle and just say, oh yeah, you can be really, really hard pressure sales or really soft pressure sales. You could do both, and everything is fine. Nobody would listen to that, because I'm like, you have no opinion. But I'm saying, like, do not do hard pressure sales. Do the soft approach, because you're going to make more money doing that.
Yeah. And I think that determines who you are as an individual as well, isn't it? Because I remember when we opened the rehab to start with, it was like, get on the phone and start speaking to people, and they go, well, what do I say? And I go, well, what you say is what you're comfortable saying. This is kind of what we'd like you to cover. Here's not a script, but this is the content. And then after that, and actually, surprisingly, once people put their personalities into that relationship, because that's what it is, you've then got, oh, yeah, we'd love to send somebody to you. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we've got this person that's looking for rehab. Yeah, And before you know it, we're flat out and can't fill any more beds type thing, which is nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then you get to work with people that are your tribe, people that are like you, and you like them, and it works out really well.
And people buy from people, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's exactly what it is.
How do you make a living out of this?
Out of coaching?
I mean, do you have lots of people? Do you have lots of people that you coach? Do you have like a caseload, or
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my one-on-one coaching that I do, and I have several companies and individuals that I work with, and I only take like 4 at a time, so 4 each month because that's the bandwidth that I have. I also have a call center that books appointments for coaches and health-centered or heart-centered people as well to book appointments from the leads that they have. So that provides the majority of my income. But yeah, I mean, that's, coaching one-on-one. And then later this year, I'll be implementing a more of a video training course so people can go through at their own leisure and then have that support of me on a weekly basis in a group setting.
Yeah, that's nice.
That sounds really good.
And
Yeah.
how do you balance out your the affordability for that for individuals? Do you set that according to what they can afford, or do you have a set amount, or what's your head around that?
Yeah, I have a set price based on the value that I'm bringing to them.
Yeah.
And I won't work with somebody that has a $200 or 200-pound program to sell, because then it doesn't make sense. They'd have to sell a lot of those. But I work with people that have a $2,000 or 2,000-pound program or more that they sell, because then at that point, I help them, get 5 additional people a month. That gives them like a 10x return on investment from working with me. And what's great about that too is they build that skill over the course of 3 months, because that's how long the engagement is with me. And it just pays dividends year after year after year after year, because they get better and better and better. So it's if you think about what the return on investment is, it's astronomical when they take what I teach them and really apply that to their own business.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm just aware of time, and we've got we don't want to take any more of your time. So do you want to ask a question?
Well, no worries. I was gonna ask Tom to kind of share how people can get in touch if they're interested in learning more, finding out more, and also ask if you'd like to come back on again in perhaps another 6 months or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I love chatting with you guys. You guys are really great. I love this format as well. It's so informal, and it's like having coffee with 2 friends. So I really appreciate it.
That's what it's meant to be.
That's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, good.
So just remind everyone how they can find out about you. So
the best way would be go to Amazon, Amazon.com. And right now the ebook is 99 cents. And just to promote the book and get it out there. So it's just 99 cents on Amazon, selling with H period, E period, A period, R period, T period, because it is an acronym for the process that I take people through. So selling with heart.
Okay.
And then inside there is all my contact details as well, but it's tom@tomjacobs.com is my email address. So people feel free to email me.
So what's your Instagram, please?
It is Impact Pilot is my Instagram.
Okay. I'll start following you then.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, Tom. It's been great to have you again, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much. All right, and
have a great rest of your day.
I'll send you a couple of copies.
That'd be great.
To do that.
Thanks very much. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.